Let's take a look at shares of Uber under some pressure early on in today's trading session. We see the stock down in excess of 3%, had been down more than 4% earlier on this morning. This coming after some news out of the UK that its drivers will be classified as workers or will have worker status in the UK. Yahoo Finance's Dan Howley joins us now. Howley, for some of the expected impacts of this, and I suppose when there is a legal ruling like this, granted this is one that happened in a different country with a different legal system, but certainly the question Uber investors will be asking is how many more countries will they face similar rulings? And of course, that would mean here in the US as well.
Yeah, this ruling basically gives some of the things that drivers were looking for out of Uber. And essentially what you're going to get here is the 70,000 plus drivers will get things like health benefits. They will get a minimum wage, sorry, not health benefits, a minimum wage, holiday time, and pension contributions. Now, there's kind of a controversy brewing based on what that minimum wage will entail. The drivers were under the assumption, and the court ruling that precipitated this says that minimum wage would be based on the amount of time that drivers are actually in their cars. But Uber, in its statement, says the minimum wage will entail when the drivers are actually driving. So that's a big difference there. Some of the drivers are now saying that Uber is just using this as a PR stunt. Regardless, it is a move that would make a change for the company and how it does treat its drivers. And as you said, it could have ramifications for what it does in other countries or how other countries approach Uber. And you'll remember that in the US, there was that AB5 law in California that was overturned, or rather adjusted, based on the Prop 22 that was held up by Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash, basically trying to get these kind of gig economy workers to not be treated as full-time employees. As part of that, Uber made concessions to allow a wage floor for Uber drivers, as well as some smaller concessions, but they're still not having to contribute to anything along the lines of a pension or paid sick leave or holidays in the US. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here, but Uber was basically forced, had their hand forced here. They're not going to give up in London and the UK. It makes up around 6.4% of their total mobility revenue. So it would have been too big of a piece of the pie to lose. It, then begs the question: what would have happened if California was able to uphold AB5? Because remember, at the time, Uber and Lyft were both saying that they would pull out, but it looks like that might have just been a threat more than anything.
Dan, are there any other states where there are cases ongoing, or where there's talk about similar measures being put forth that would also affect how the company does business?
Yeah, there's still litigation ongoing with Prop 22 and AB5, so that's not necessarily completely settled. But other states have looked at Uber and Lyft and the gig economy as a whole. New York obviously made some moves against it, but they are extremely strong-willed against any kind of intervention on the government's behalf. You'll remember that in Texas, I believe it was Houston, where they tried to institute a tax or some kind of moves against Uber as far as how they treat their workers, and Uber straight up just left the city. So they have made good on those threats before, but it does, only happen when it's a smaller area and it doesn't make up a good chunk of their revenue. Obviously, in the UK, that's 6.4%, too much for them to lose. And California, one of their larger markets, also too big to lose. So again, I just go back to what would have happened if AB5 had stood and Prop 22 wasn't pushed forward. But that had the backing. It was one of the largest kind of campaigns by any companies pushing an agenda in the state's history. So whether or not it would have eventually fallen regardless remains to be seen. But I think, when you look at this ruling and you look at the way Uber has kind of responded, it does go to show you that they will have to bend at certain points.